Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Scott, this is so exciting. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Do you want to walk people through quickly your background? How did you get involved in health and wellness, or what's your origin story?
How much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. I usually start off kind of in the beginning when I tell people I was basically born constipated, right? Like
Mm.
I remember at a very young age, like 3 or 4, sitting on the potty and having my feet fall asleep from sitting there for so long because I was so constipated. And
Mm.
that kind of started my journey of having doctors throw band-aids at symptoms, right? My mom and the doctors were giving me these gross, nasty, thick oils, right, to soften my stool. But nobody was trying to figure out why this 3-year-old was so constipated.
Mm.
It was right around the same time my uncle had killed himself. And there was a lot of trauma, to say the least, in the family going on. And me at a very young age didn't quite understand what was going on, but I was very, very close to him. And he was probably one of the few in the family that that got me, who actually acted like they liked me. So it was a huge hole that went away when he went away. And so you fast forward quite a few more years, lots of early childhood trauma. But I was bit by a tick when I was 13 and didn't start developing symptoms until about 2 years later with my first attempt at suicide. And I ended up in the psych ward. And so again, take two of let's throw band-aids at symptoms, right?
Mm.
Why is this 15-year-old trying to take herself out of the world? Instead, I got, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, pat on the head, being called attention seeking, right?
Mm.
What's the matter, young lady? You're not getting enough attention at home, and they send me out the door. Fast forward, quite a few more years, I went 27 years undiagnosed Lyme disease,
Wow.
celiac disease, Hashimoto's, endometriosis, so there's 3 autoimmune diseases and a chronic critter that was wreaking havoc in my brain and my joints and my body and my gut that your lab results look normal. That's all I ever got told. But I felt anything but normal, right? So that's really what got me into the functional medicine space. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And it was when I heard the founder of FDN speak, and he talked about balancing your gut, balancing hormones, or your detox pathways open. What's your mindset like? How much sleep are you getting? Nobody ever asked me those questions before,
Wow.
right? I was like a typical any teenager in early teens, early 20s person, just burning the candle at both ends. And, so it was just, it was a game changer once I started getting back down to the foundations of health. And that's why I do what I do. And that's how I work with folks for the most part.
That's a remarkable story. I mean, I'm still aghast at the fact that, for as long as you went without being diagnosed, it's still shocking to me that in this modern age that these 3 giant autoimmune conditions can't be are not understood very well, or they can't be diagnosed. I mean, it's just amazing to me that through as many doctors as you saw, they simply could not diagnose these 3 autoimmune diseases. I mean, again, just shocking to me.
It is to me too. And sometimes I still, when I tell the story, I have to choke back tears because it was just a huge part of my life where I was misunderstood. And the whole, when you go to this, you get labeled things like hypochondriac, like crazy, and I'm trying to start this like huge movement right now of like getting rid of the C word, and saying, hey, I'm not crazy, or, hey, your brain inflammation is showing, right? Like, because that's what's really going on. Treating mental health like a physical ailment, because that's what it is. Right. But so many people treat it as some weird taboo thing that we don't talk about. And if you do, you get this massive label slapped on you, and that's it. Like, you're done. Like, there's been 2 health companies I tried to work for that wouldn't work with me because they thought, or they had seen something I had written on Facebook, which was supposed to be inspirational about kind of where I was at one day with my mental health and what I did to overcome it. Right. So it was supposed to be inspirational, but they labeled it as not looking good for a health company. And I was shocked because they had people working for them that were overweight. right? They had people working for them that had diabetes. They had people working for them, getting through cancer treatment. But heaven forbid I talk about my mental health issues, right? Because that 10 minutes that I struggled in that 30-day, month calendar, that's it. Like it completely tells the story of who I am, all the time. And it's heartbreaking. And I'm on a mission, because obviously I'm not crazy. I have my moments. My brain has suffered some massive damage, and I've done some remarkable things to help heal it. And, when I met you at the party, I wasn't drinking. That was one of my first parties, not drinking. And that's part of this healing program too, is I'm trying to lower inflammation from any source. Right. And
Sure.
alcohol is a huge trigger for that. And so, yeah, I'm doing whatever it takes. And I'm proof that it can be done.
So I love your story, your healing journey. And so you talk about reversing 3 out of the 4 autoimmune conditions that you had. Um, Walk me through, like, what's step one? What did you do, or what was the first step that you took to begin addressing some of these autoimmune conditions, and what did you do to kind of reverse it?
So the FDN model is what they call a dress for success. It's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And so step one was diet. I was typical American standard, the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet, macaroni and cheese and Kool-Aid. And I grew up on Mountain Dew and nothing that was food, right? Like I say all the time, if your body doesn't recognize an ingredient, if you don't recognize an ingredient, neither does your body. And it causes inflammation, it causes damage. And so diet was the first thing to start cleaning things up. And with me being celiac for so long, it was more than just going on a gluten-free diet. It was kind of cutting out all grains, all dairy, corn, even, getting rid of the very inflammatory foods and healing my gut. Because if you've got a leaky gut, you've got a leaky brain, which also adds to the mix when it comes to mental health issues. So, step one was absolutely diet, and then just going through the rest of that, how are you sleeping? Again, I was kind of always a night owl. I used to work in the bars back in the day, so burning the candle at both ends. Mindshare was actually kind of tough on me because we stayed up a little later than I was used to, playing, and then having to get up and be, using the noggin the next day. So I was kind of glad I had cut alcohol out since the previous year, because I think that's the only reason I was able to get through that convention and still have everything intact.
So diet was number one. So you took a look at, you have Crohn's, but you'd never been told before that you had any kind of gluten sensitivity. Like, how did that immediately have an impact? In other words, my guess is if you cut out gluten, you're almost going to feel better right away. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. And so it was celiac, not Crohn's.
Ah, celiac.
And yeah,
Yes.
all gut stuff though, right? Yeah, it's amazing when I start working with clients. I used to just kind of be like gung-ho right off the bat. We're going to run all these labs and we're going to do all the things. And then now I'm like, you know what? Let's implement a few lifestyle changes first, and then we'll go tweak from there, because 9 times out of 10, people are like, oh my God, it's a miracle. Like, my pain is gone. My gut's working. I'm no longer constipated. Like, my periods have been more normal and not as painful. Like, fill in the blank. Like, it's amazing what happens when you, like I said, remove inflammatory foods, heal the gut. Like, game changer, total
Okay.
game changer.
So that's step one in your journey, is heal the gut.
Mhm.
What happened next in terms of your journey to health? Did the gut solve everything, or were there other things that you implemented in your system?
No, because I found out that I've got issues in my DNA, right? I don't detox properly. I do not metabolize and move vitamin D very well. Same with vitamin C, same with zinc. So I was nutrient deficient in quite a few things. Not detoxing properly. So then, after we peeled apart the sleep stuff and just did the FDN way, sleep, supplements, stress reduction. Then I did have to dig a little deeper, because I was sick for 28 years. 28 years of damage in my body. And so I had to really start, put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And that was looking deeper into some energetic, bioenergetic healing, which has been huge at helping heal some of that past trauma without actually having to relive the trauma,
And
like a lot of therapy.
what is bioenergetic healing? Sorry to interrupt you, but what is that exactly?
Um, everything is frequencies. It's rooted in physics. I'm not smart enough to completely answer it any deeper than that at the moment. It's something I've been playing with ever since I got diagnosed with Lyme in 2013. I used something called Rife technology, and Royal Rife back in the 1930s started working with frequencies. And so, like how an opera singer can hit that note and shatter the glass, it's because she hit that same frequency and vibrated it to a point where it destroyed it. There's different ways that you can use this kind of energetic type of healing, but for people who've been sick for a long time, and especially those that have got a lot of mental health, early childhood trauma type stuff that they're carrying in their body, because most disease is rooted in a mental emotional trauma that we haven't been able to store from the body. Release from the body. It's been stored in the body. So I took now, diet is part of it, but you've also got to look at mindset. You've got to look at, healing the nervous system and getting that chilled out, and looking at trauma, looking at detox, look at toxins in your environment, in your body. Like there's multiple layers to healing. And that's, since I started my business back up 2 years ago, that's all I've been doing is walking my own walk, so that way everything that I'm implementing, I know works and that I can bring to other people. And so I can take what's been my 10-year journey and condense it down to, 6 months to a year for them.
It's interesting you spoke about the test results that revealed that you had the DNA issues with respect to absorbing things differently. How do those tests happen? Is that something that you order up and it's a special test that really anyone can do that can look at your genes like that? Or walk me through kind of the process of understanding the genetic component of health and wellness.
So I started working with this new company. They're a baby company. They're not very old, but they're doing things like cutting edge. So a lot of times when you get DNA testing, so this is not like your 23andMe, right? Where I'm looking at what part Neanderthal I am, or, what have you. This is deeper than that. And a lot of DNA tests that you can even get online are looking for genetic mutations or SNPs, right? And so the way this company describes it is a SNP is like a misspelling in a sentence, right? These guys are actually looking for deleted sentences, because if you think about it, you're going to go about treating that completely differently. And a lot of times when people are focused on just one SNP, they're not focused on what that pathway does further down the line. And so this company looks at the whole, so let's say for sleep, it looks at all the genes that are associated with sleep and how they're working together, and what the deficiencies might be, where the weak links are, and then how to best support that without throwing off another system down the line. Make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
So you hit upon nutrition, you hit upon obviously sleep, and looking at some of your DNA related issues. What else kind of comes into the fold in terms of you looking at a client and healing them? Is there anything else that you particularly focus on in their journey for healing?
Oh, absolutely. Sleep. Not sleep. Exercise is one. Sadly, women especially, this condition to look a certain way, right, with these certain body types, and we can have a tendency to overdo cardio, right? And we've got this whole model of calories in versus calories out, which is outdated BS that we've learned quite a bit about. Just this last year and a half, I've lost 55 pounds by walking. My husband has lost 75 pounds by walking.
Wow, amazing.
And the diet stuff, of course, and the other stuff that I talked about, but it wasn't spending 3 hours a day in the gym, right? We didn't. And that's actually very counterproductive, because stress on the body is stress on the body. Our body doesn't recognize good stress versus bad stress. And so if we are flatlined because of chronic illness, inflammation, trauma, and then we add this overact, this over exercising on top of it, it is an added stress to the body. I remember after I had my kiddo, doing spin classes, and I'd come home from a spin class and I would sleep for 2.5 hours straight. And my ex-husband at the time was like, what the heck is wrong with you? I thought exercise was supposed to energize you. And I'm like, I don't know. I thought so too. I had nothing in the tank to give. And the fact that I even made it through those spin classes just shows you how miraculous the body is, and how even when there's nothing in the tank, it can still kick something in the clutch to kind of get you through it. Well, until there's a point of no return. And I hadn't reached that point yet, thank God. But yeah, so usually when I start working with folks, like I tell them the first 3 months, I want you walking, yoga, light strength training, and stretching. Like that's where you're going to live for the next couple months. And it seems so counterintuitive, but people really make big shifts when they kind of slow down a little.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because I think when you effectuate any long-term change in somebody, I think you have to start with their belief about they actually can change. Because my guess is that people that come to you, some of them might have gone through the traditional medical system and been kicked out or called crazy, or any attention seeking or whatever. But it seems to me that, there has to be a willingness to actually change and want to do this. It seems like that's the number one thing. And I guess what you're saying, I think, is the extent to which you can make the action items very easy to do. Like, you're not saying go work out in the gym for 3 hours, but just go for a walk. And really anyone can go for a walk. But it seems like the mindset is really important. Talk to me about a typical client that comes to see you. Are they fed up, tired? Are they been just accepted the fact that pain is just normal?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny that you bring that up, because that's actually a question in my first questionnaire. Before they even talk to me for a free consult, they have to answer that question. Do you believe you can get better? Because if the answer is no, do not waste my time. Do not waste your time. Like you're do not pass go, do not collect $200. Like we can't work together. If you do not believe that this is going to work, don't waste your money, and I've actually had a couple people in the past that have spent thousands of dollars and never showed up. And that just blows my brain, because and my ex-husband was like, "Wow, that's an awesome client." I'm like, no, that's not why I got into this line of work. I got into this line of work because I want to help people. So yeah, it's huge. And it is sad. It's a tough demographic I work with, because a lot of them have been through the same thing that I've been through. And a lot of them show up burnt, not trusting, skeptical, broke, no energy, brain fog. So it's a lot to unpack. And I do teach quite a few exercises in the program that kind of helps get people's nervous system reset. Some breath work and mindset stuff, a lot of mindset stuff, because that was part of my story too. So I relapsed, I graduated FDN in 2013, completely changed my life, relapsed 7 years later because I went back to living like an old lifestyle, right? So I had put a bunch of weight back on. I told you I lost 55 pounds. So that was gained a bunch of weight. I was inflamed. I was angry. I was reactive. And I had to start peeling back the layers again myself. But it was because I kept focusing on the physical. In the past, test results, supplements, food, focus on the physical. But I never, ever, ever once addressed my uncle killing himself when I was 4 years old, or, the other childhood trauma that I had dealt with, my whole freaking life. And my nervous system was just trashed. Like you can't heal when the gas pedal is on, right? And there's a tiger constantly chasing you. You can't heal in that energy, right? So you got rest and digest, and you got fight or flight. And I was in fight or flight all the time.
Right.
And that was a huge part of my healing journey this last year and a half, was just peeling back the nervous system stuff, peeling back the trauma and the mindset, and really getting this on board.
Your story is so inspiring because you've lived it, right? Like everyone, or most people that I speak to, have a story that kind of moved them into a certain direction of this line of work, but your story is so appealing. Could you walk me through one story, or at least one person that you've helped over the years you've done this, that really sticks out to you, that really, undoubtedly treated hundreds, maybe thousands of people, but is there one that you can share that really made a big impact in your for you in your work?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, most people I can actually get pretty quick wins within like the first month. They're starting to notice some differences. I had one poor gentleman who didn't get those quick wins, and we had to dig a lot deeper. And 6 months in, we found out that he was still living in mold, and that was huge. And there was no doctor that would have told him, asked him about the environment that he's living in. And, oh, by the way, you told me you left your last place with mold. Did you bring stuff from that place into this place, and then possibly contaminate the new place? Oh, you did. Okay. Well, you know, change of direction here, And so we started digging through the mold stuff and got him on a different detox protocol, and he had to do some remediation. And, now, geez, I think we've been working together for about 10 months, and he's finally starting to turn a corner, and,
Wow.
and there was a few times there where he was like really upset with me. And I was frustrated with him because we couldn't quite figure out like what's going on here, but I'm tenacious, right? If you still got any shred of hope left in your body, like I will figure it out. And if I don't know, I know somebody who does, right? Like
Right.
I've got connections up the hilt. I know I don't just I'm not so egotistical to think that I have all the answers. I will definitely go outside of me to find what I need for my clients. And that's, kind of what I did for him. It was a little bit of a village, takes a village type of thing, but he's getting his brain back. He's getting energy back.
Oh,
He's 44 years old. There's no reason for him to have, been feeling the way that he was feeling. And man, I can't even imagine what shape his brain would be in the next 10, 15 years if he would have kept going down that path. So it's been, and so he's been giving me some awesome testimonials lately, and it's just amazing. I mean, because he's put in the work. He did it, right? He didn't give up.
it
So
seems to be a very common theme with, again, people that I speak with. I would label, the work that you do as problem solving, and it's as if you can sit with the problem long enough and really solve it, um, it'll have a solution. Whereas I think that the way modern medicine is done today is you have 7 minutes with your doctor, and you just dump as much as you can into this poor guy who's got 30 other people lined up behind you, and the doctor is going to do what they can in the 7 minutes to just ascertain what's going on. They might give you a pill, they might recommend you to see another specialist, they might recommend surgery, but it seems like the common theme is you can sit with a problem long enough and you can solve it, but just by virtue of the amount of time and energy you can put into it. Is that a fair assessment?
well, yes and no, because if you don't know what you don't know, right,
Ah,
that's never going to come to you. But this was my journey, right? I also had mold toxicity that was a part of me having to dig through to getting better. I also had cavitation surgery. They took my wisdom teeth out incorrectly when I was 13 years old and enclosed an infection into my jaw. Well, if you think about it, all the blood vessels in your jaw, what are those really close to? Your
right.
brain, right?
Mm,
So I had this chronic infection also coming from my jaw, so I had him check that out as well. I also had him go to the sleep center and do a sleep study to make sure he didn't have sleep apnea, because even the best diet in the world, if you're not getting the right amount of oxygen when you sleep, right,
right.
is not going to do you a bit of good. Same thing with this infection, right? You could literally be, having all the organic this and the blah, blah, that. But if you've got this chronic infection going on, so there are like big boulders that you kind of really have to address first before you kind of start going into lifestyle stuff sometimes, but
Right.
it depends. But like I said, that's why I do what I do, and why I'm constantly, I just got done taking that advanced course in DNA. I just got done taking an advanced course in mold. I just got done taking, fill in the blank, like, because I'm seeing these patterns with these chronically sick folks, and I'm seeing not a lot of folks who can work with them. There's,
Mm,
they, there's still a lot of specialties going out there, right? Which is kind of goofy because the whole body's connected. And so to have somebody who can take a step back and look at trauma, look at toxification, talk about the gut, also with the blah, fill in the blank, because it's all connected.
100%. Well, Heather, this has been great. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your knowledge. I love your story. Your story is incredible. A 28-year journey and just coming out the other side to this person you are today. So thank you so much for the time that we spent together, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.